Today we are gonna make one of my favorite recipes, firecracker lettuce wraps. This is a big time favorite in our family because we love peanut butter. So if you put peanut sauce on anything, we will eat it. So I wanna talk to you a bit about tofu before we start. Some of you may not be familiar with tofu. I'm very familiar with tofu. We eat it all the time. So there's a couple of different ways to cook tofu. We're gonna go through that today. And tofu is a great source of cholesterol-free protein. It's cost-effective, it's very healthy for you, really high in calcium. And there's a lot of misconceptions about tofu out there, that it has estrogen in it or it can give you boobs. And I certainly can testify to the fact that that is not true. I've been eating it for years and I would look like Pamela Anderson. So I really hope you guys give this recipe a try. I make it for my dad all the time and he is a staunch meat eater and he loves it. He gobbles it up. We usually have to double the recipe. So what we're gonna do is very carefully open the package of tofu. It comes in water just to keep it hydrated. So you're just gonna dump that right out and discard the package. So you're gonna have this nice thick block and you're going to pat it down with paper towel or tea towel just to get some of that excess moisture off, because we want to be able to saute it and get it nice and crispy. So just like that. There we go. So tofu is a lot like chicken in that it doesn't itself have a lot or any flavor, which makes it perfect for cooking recipes like this because it will just soak in the flavors of the spices and the sauce that you put on top of it. Nobody really eats plain chicken. We usually, if you think about it, we usually add sauce and spices and make it taste different. Plain chicken breasts aren't usually that yummy either. So kind of same concept with tofu. So I'm gonna cut the block of tofu right in half. The beautiful thing as well about cooking with this is you don't have to worry about any gross bacteria. You don't have to use a different cutting board. So that is a huge selling point for me. So we're just gonna cut these into probably 1/2-inch cubes. Especially if you guys are just starting out with tofu, you probably don't want to have big giant chunks of it. So that's all the chopping we pretty much have to do for this recipe. The sauce is already pre-made. The one you're gonna get in your kit is pre-made as well, but it's very easy to assemble. If you are gonna repeat the recipe, you're just gonna put all of your ingredients into a bowl or into a mason jar. If it's in a mason jar, you can give it a good shake to combine all the ingredients. If it's in a bowl, you can just whisk it up. You don't have to have any special ingredients. Today, I'm gonna make this recipe for my family using butter lettuce. It's one of my favorites just because the leaf is a little bit tougher, so I find it holds the ingredients better, but we also use iceberg lettuce as well. I have also been soaking the rice noodles just in a bowl of lukewarm water. So you're gonna wanna do that until they turn soft. You don't have to cook them, otherwise they can get really soft really fast if you put them in boiling water, and then they can turn kind of mushy. So I just soak them in lukewarm water while I'm preparing the rest of the recipe. It's usually about 20 minutes to 30 minutes until they're ready. Just check on them every once in a while. So now that I have everything ready to go, I'm just gonna heat up a pan and we're gonna start sauteing the tofu. So I'm gonna take some oil and add 1 to 2 tablespoons of oil to the frying pan, and then I have it turned on to medium-low heat just to let the oil heat up. So you're gonna wanna get it fairly hot so that when we flick it with water, we hear a little bit of a sizzle before we put the tofu on. So when you put the tofu in the pan, make sure none of it is touching each other. We're also gonna put some salt and pepper on it. So the key to making yummy crispy tofu is to let it cook on one side for quite a while without touching it. Don't toss it around in the pan, don't move it around too much. You're gonna let it get really crispy on the bottom, and we're gonna just check one of them every once in a while to see if they're ready to be turned. Okay, so we're just gonna go in and check how these are doing. And that is what you want to see, a nice crispy base. So we're just gonna, it's a little tedious, but I promise it's worth it. Just flip them all over. The alternate way to doing this is you can also bake the tofu in the oven as well. That's a great way to get a crispy tofu also. But I find it's faster just to do it quickly in the pan. Okay, so our tofu is nice and crispy. I've only done 2 sides and just left the middle undone because this is definitely enough crispiness. So what we're gonna do now is add the sauce. We're gonna turn down the heat to add the sauce. Give it a second just to kind of cool down. Move your tofu around a little bit because you don't want it to get burnt. Okay, we're gonna add half the jar of sauce. And just stir it around and get all the tofu covered. Okay, so we're gonna saute this for another 3 to 5 minutes until all the sugars start to caramelize around the tofu. Okay, so see how yummy and delicious and crispy this all looks? This is what you want to see, all these nice caramelized pieces. It smells so good. So now we're going to transfer these to a bowl and then get our noodles into the pan. You don't always have to do it, but that's what the recipe calls for, so we'll do that this time. And I'm totally going to eat one just to taste test because it smells so good. Oh, so good. Mmm. I dare you to not like tofu with this recipe. So I've added a little more oil to the pan, turned up the heat again, drained our noodles, and we're gonna add these. Now, sometimes I like to add extra vegetables to this recipe. You can get a bag of pre-mixed coleslaw and toss that in here. Also really delicious in the peanut sauce, and you don't even really notice the texture because they're kind of like noodles. I also sometimes chop up broccoli really fine and saute them and throw them into this recipe as well, just to sneak in the veggies for the little ones. So we're just gonna get the noodles cooking and get them warmed up. Noodles are getting warm. Make sure that you try to keep them from sticking too much to each other. I'm gonna put the rest of the sauce in. Make sure you get it all. I'm also gonna add a splash of water, just swish it around. Okay, so you're gonna take your lettuce leaves to serve, add a little or a lot of noodles, a couple pieces of tofu. I'm gonna need more. It's a nice kind of sticky, messy dinner. And then just wrap it up and take a bite. Mmm.